When the principal grabbed that microphone at my son's graduation and said those words about broken homes, I thought I'd hit rock bottom. But when my ex-husband joined in with his cruel jab and my 8-year-old daughter suddenly marched toward that stage, I realized this day was about to become something none of us would ever forget. My name is Brenna Mitchell, and if you'd told me that morning that my 8-year-old would end up teaching a room full of adults about dignity, I would have laughed through my exhaustion. See, I'm one of those statistics people whisper about at PTA meetings. The single mom with bags under her eyes, wearing the same 3 outfits on rotation, always running 5 minutes late because my car needed a jump start again. That graduation day in May started like every other milestone since my divorce. Me trying to make everything perfect with almost nothing. I'd set my alarm for 4 a.m. to hot roller my hair because the curling iron broke last month. I'd safety pinned the hem of my dress where it had caught on the car door. I'd given myself a pep talk in the bathroom mirror, the same one I'd been giving myself for 3 years. You're enough, Brenna, you're enough. My son Colton was graduating, 18 years old, 6 feet tall, and still the same kid who used to cry because the letters on the page wouldn't stop dancing. Dyslexia, the doctors said. Just one more challenge to add to our collection. But there he was, about to walk across that stage in a cap and gown I'd paid for by picking up extra shifts, cleaning office buildings until my hands were raw. And then there was Piper, 8 years old, with the attitude of someone who'd already figured out how the world works and decided she wasn't impressed. She'd insisted on wearing her favorite pink dress, the one with the tulle skirt that made her feel like a warrior princess. Her light-up sneakers blinked red and blue with every step. She'd been documenting our life on that tablet I'd saved for 6 months to buy, thinking she was playing games. I had no idea she'd turned into our family's unofficial historian. My ex-husband Garrett sat 3 rows ahead of us, his new wife Nadine beside him, her salon-fresh highlights catching the auditorium lights. He'd texted me that morning, "Try not to embarrass yourself today." 3 years since he'd walked out, and he still knew exactly which buttons to push. Principal Wendell stood at the podium like he owned the place, which in a way he did. 55 years old, gray suit that had seen better decades, and opinions that should have stayed in the last century. He'd been principal at Riverside High for 20 years, watching families like mine struggle through his system, sorting us into categories: likely to succeed, likely to fail, likely to become another statistic. The auditorium was packed. 500 people. Easy. Other parents with their professional cameras and proud smiles. Grandparents who'd flown in from other states. Intact families taking intact family photos. And then there was us. Me, Piper, and my mother who'd driven 2 hours with her bad hip just to be here. "Mommy, why does Daddy have better seats?" Piper had asked when we'd first walked in, her voice carrying the way only a child's can. "Different doesn't mean better, baby," I'd told her, though we both knew that wasn't really true. His seats were better. His car was better. His whole new life was better, at least from where we were sitting. The ceremony program felt heavy in my hands. Colton James Mitchell, printed in the same font as everyone else's name, but I knew the story behind those letters. The nights he'd thrown his textbooks across the room, the tutors we couldn't afford but somehow managed to pay, the moment he'd finally read a full page without stumbling, and we'd both cried in the middle of the public library. "Ladies and gentlemen," the speakers crackled to life, "please take your seats. We're about to begin celebrating the class of 2024. My heart was already racing, and I had no idea it was about to shatter into 1,000 pieces before being rebuilt by an 8-year-old girl who'd apparently been preparing for battle while I thought she was watching YouTube videos. This is the story of how my daughter became our family's hero, how she stood up when everyone expected us to sit down, how she turned our worst public humiliation into our greatest triumph, and how sometimes the smallest voice in the room is the only one worth listening to. I sat in that crowded auditorium wearing my best dress, the blue one I'd bought at Goodwill specifically for this day. The price tag had said $12, but the lady at the register, recognizing me from my weekend shifts at the diner, had quietly marked it down to $8. Small kindnesses like that kept us afloat. My hands trembled as I clutched the small bouquet of grocery store flowers I'd managed to afford. $6 for carnations that were already starting to wilt. But Colton deserved flowers on his graduation day. Around me, other parents chatted excitedly. their designer bags and fresh manicures making me acutely aware of my chipped nail polish. I'd painted them myself last night at 2 in the morning, right after finishing my shift at the office building I cleaned. Dusty rose, the bottle had said. It looked more like tired pink under these lights. Garrett sat 3 rows ahead with his new wife, Nadine, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the light every time she moved. She kept touching his arm, marking her territory like she'd won some prize. I guess in her mind she had. A successful real estate agent with a Mercedes and a house in Riverside Heights. She didn't know him when he was 22 and scared about becoming a father, when he'd hold my hand during Colton's asthma attacks, when he'd promised we'd get through anything together. "Mommy, why is Daddy sitting over there?" Piper whispered, her small hand finding mine. Her fingers were sticky from the lollipop I'd given her to keep her quiet during the ceremony. "It's okay, sweetheart. We're here for Colton, remember?" "But we're his family too," she said, louder than I would have liked. "We should all sit together." A woman in front of us turned around with that look. You know the one. Part pity, part relief that her life wasn't as messy as mine. I'd gotten used to that look at school events, soccer games, parent-teacher conferences. The look that said, "There but for the grace of God go I." The thing about being the divorced mom is that every school event becomes a minefield. You navigate around the perfect families, dodge the pitying looks, and pretend your heart doesn't break a little when your kids ask why Daddy lives somewhere else now. You learn to shrink yourself, to take up less space, to apologize for existing in a world built for matching wedding rings and joint checking accounts. My mother sat on my other side, her rough hand patting my knee. She'd driven 2 hours this morning with her bad hip, stopping twice to stretch because the pain medication wasn't working like it used to. "Breathe, Brenna," she whispered. "Just breathe." Colton had worked so hard for this moment. God, the hours we'd spent at that kitchen table. Me, exhausted from my lunch shift at the diner. Him frustrated with words that wouldn't stay still on the page. The tutoring sessions we couldn't really afford, but somehow managed to pay for by me, selling my grandmother's china piece by piece on Facebook Marketplace. The late nights when I'd quiz him on vocabulary words while folding laundry for my neighbor for extra cash. The tears when he thought he wasn't smart enough, when he'd say, "Maybe Dad's right. Maybe I am just stupid." "He's not stupid," Piper had declared one of those nights, marching into Colton's room in her pajamas. "His brain just works different, like how I can't whistle but I can do cartwheels. Everyone's good at something." The auditorium filled with the buzz of anticipation. Grandparents with iPads ready to record, mothers fixing their lipstick, fathers checking work emails they couldn't leave alone even for 2 hours. The stage was decorated with blue and gold streamers, Riverside High's colors, and a banner that read, "Future begins today," in glittery letters that some parent volunteer had probably spent hours perfecting. I watched other families settling in. The Johnsons, whose son Blake had gotten into Harvard. They'd made sure everyone knew, bringing Harvard sweatshirts for the whole family to wear. The Pinas, whose daughter Maria was valedictorian, her speech tucked carefully in her mother's purse for safekeeping. And then us, the Mitchells, or what was left of us, the broken family with the struggling kid who'd barely made it. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Riverside High's graduation ceremony," Principal Wendell's voice boomed through the speakers. He stood at the podium like a general surveying his troops, his gray suit hanging loose on his frame, his red tie slightly crooked. I squeezed Piper's hand and forced myself to smile. This was Colton's day. Whatever came next, we'd earned the right to be here. We'd fought for this moment with everything we had. Everything started normally. Names were called alphabetically. Kids walked across the stage. Families cheered. The Andersons, the Brennans, the Castellanos. Each graduate got their 30 seconds of glory, a handshake, a diploma, a photo opportunity. I watched them cross that stage with their confident strides, their families erupting in coordinated cheers. Some had air horns, which Principal Wendell pretended to disapprove of, but secretly seemed to enjoy. "Jennifer Morris," he called out, and Jennifer practically floated across the stage, her parents shooting up from their seats like rockets. Her father whistled loud enough to pierce eardrums. Normal, beautiful, everything a graduation should be. My palms were sweating. Colton would be soon. Mitchell came right after Morris. Morrison, then Mitchell. I could see him in the line of graduates, adjusting his cap for the 10th time. That nervous habit he'd had since he was little. He kept touching his throat, probably making sure his tie was still straight. I'd tied it for him this morning, my fingers remembering how to do it even though Garrett had been gone for 3 years. "Colton James Mitchell," Mr. Wendell announced. My heart swelled. Piper jumped up on her seat to see better. My mother grabbed my hand. This was it, our moment. But then Mr. Wendell didn't just hand over the diploma like he had with the others. He kept the microphone. He held on to Colton's diploma, making my son stand there, exposed under those bright lights. "You know, folks, this young man here is what I call a surprise graduate." My stomach dropped like I'd missed a step going downstairs. The auditorium grew quieter. Parents who'd been checking their phones looked up. Colton here barely scraped by with the minimum GPA, had to take summer school twice, required special accommodations for every test. He said special accommodations like it was something shameful, something dirty. But what can you expect? He paused, and I swear he looked directly at me, not at Garrett in his expensive suit, at me in my Goodwill dress with my wilting carnations. Kids from broken homes usually don't make it this far. Single mothers trying their best, but well, statistics don't lie. 70% more likely to drop out, twice as likely to repeat grades. The odds were against young Colton here from the start. A few uncomfortable laughs rippled through the crowd. Someone coughed. I felt eyes turning toward us, hundreds of eyes finding the divorced mother in the cheap dress. My face burned so hot I thought my skin might actually catch fire. Colton stood frozen on stage, his cheeks red, his hands shaking as he reached for his diploma. "That's not fair," Piper said, loud enough for people around us to hear. Her little voice cut through the awkwardness like a blade. But Mr. Wendell wasn't done. He was enjoying this, I realized. This little moment of power, of putting us in our place. The boys had every excuse to fail. Divorced parents, financial struggles, learning disabilities. It's actually remarkable he made it at all. Sometimes these kids surprise us by just showing up. That's when Garrett stood up. My ex-husband, the man who'd once cried at Colton's first Little League game, stood up in his $1,000 suit. "Well, Mr. Wendell, you're not wrong," his voice carried across the auditorium. People turned to look at him now. The boys just like his mother. A disappointment. Barely keeping their heads above water. At least he graduated, which is more than I expected when I was writing those child support checks. The auditorium gasped collectively. Someone's grandmother said, "Oh my Lord," loud enough for everyone to hear. Nadine tugged at Garrett's sleeve, her face red, but he shrugged her off, seemingly enjoying the attention, the chance to publicly distance himself from his failed first family. "Dad, please," Colton's voice cracked into the microphone he'd grabbed from the principal. The pain in those 2 words broke something inside me. "What? I'm paying child support for what? A C-average student? Your mother couldn't even keep a marriage together, let alone raise successful kids. Look at them, struggling for everything, wearing thrift store clothes to graduation." Tears stung my eyes, hot and shameful. Parents were whispering, phones were coming out. I could see screens lighting up as people started recording. This was supposed to be Colton's day, his triumph over dyslexia, over divorce, over everything that had tried to break him. Instead, it was turning into a public execution of our little family. My mother started to stand, fury in her 70-year-old eyes, but I pulled her back down. Making a scene would only make it worse. We had to endure this. We had to survive it like we'd survived everything else. Colton stood on that stage, diploma in hand, tears streaming down his face, and I had never felt more like a failure as a mother than in that moment. That's when I felt Piper's hand leave mine. The absence of her sticky fingers was sudden and alarming, like when you realize your wallet isn't in your pocket. I turned to grab her, but she was already moving, sliding past my mother's knees, her little body determined and unstoppable. "Piper, no honey, come back," I whispered urgently, but she was already in the aisle. Her pink tulle dress swished with each step, those light-up sneakers flashing red and blue like tiny emergency vehicles racing to a crisis. She wasn't running, though. She walked with the deliberate pace of someone who had been planning this moment, though I couldn't understand how that was possible. The crowd parted for her instinctively. This 8-year-old girl, barely 4 feet tall, walking toward that stage like she owned the entire auditorium. People pulled their legs back to let her pass. A few phones swung her way, already recording whatever was about to happen. She climbed the stage stairs one at a time, her small hand gripping the railing. The pink dress made her look even smaller against the vast black stage, but something about her posture, the set of her shoulders, made her seem larger than life. Mr. Wendell stepped back, confused. Garrett had sat back down, but I could see him starting to rise again, uncertain what his youngest child was doing. "Excuse me." Her voice rang out clear and strong as she took the microphone from her stunned brother. She had to stand on her tiptoes to reach it properly. "I'm Piper Mitchell, and I have something to show everyone about my dad." The auditorium went dead silent. 500 people holding their breath at once. Even the babies stopped fussing, as if they knew something important was happening. She pulled out her tablet from her little backpack, the one with the unicorns on it that she'd insisted on bringing. I'd thought she wanted it to play games during the boring parts of the ceremony. She'd been so quiet lately, always on that tablet, and I'd assumed she was watching those crafting videos she loved or playing Minecraft. I'd been too exhausted to check, too overwhelmed with work and bills and keeping us all alive to pay attention to what my 8-year-old was doing online. "Mr. Wendell said broken homes make broken kids," she said, her voice steady in a way mine never could have been. "My daddy said Mommy is a disappointment." She pulled out a cable from her backpack, the one I'd bought her for school presentations. With surprising efficiency, she connected the tablet to the projection system. The tech teacher, Mr. Barnes, actually stepped forward to help her, holding the tablet while she plugged in the cable. The projection screen flickered to life. "But I've been keeping records," she announced. My heart stopped. What records? What had my baby girl been doing? "This is my daddy's Instagram," she announced as Garrett's profile appeared on the huge screen. His smiling face, perfect teeth, perfect life, blazing across the 40-foot screen for everyone to see. "See this picture? That's him in Hawaii last month. He posted it on March 15th. He said he couldn't afford to pay for Colton's SAT prep classes in February." The photo showed Garrett and Nadine on a beach, holding tropical drinks, the sunset perfect behind them. The caption read, "Living my best life. Sometimes you have to prioritize your happiness. Tika blessed our new beginnings. Worth it." Garrett jumped up. "Piper, sweetheart, that's enough." "I'm not done," she interrupted, her 8-year-old voice carrying the authority of a judge. "Sit down, Daddy." And he did. Garrett Mitchell, the man who'd intimidated me for years, who'd made me feel small and worthless, sat down because an 8-year-old told him to. "This is from his Facebook," she continued, swiping to a new image. "He bought a new boat 2 weeks ago, $28,000. Colton needed glasses for 2 years before Mommy could save enough money. They cost $300. The boat gleamed on the screen, white and pristine. Garrett standing next to it with his arms crossed, proud. The dealership had tagged him in the photo. "Congratulations to our newest member of the Riverside Marina family." She swiped again. "This is a screenshot of Daddy's Venmo. He paid his golf club dues, $2,000. The same week he said he couldn't help with my school supplies." My mother grabbed my hand. "Did you know she was doing this?" she whispered. I shook my head, unable to speak. My 8-year-old daughter had been building a case like a tiny prosecutor, gathering evidence while I'd been too tired to notice. She'd been protecting us in the only way she knew how, with screenshots and timestamps and the kind of fury that only comes from watching your mother cry when she thinks you're asleep. "I have more," Piper said to the silent auditorium. "Lots more." The screen changed to a video. It was shaky, clearly filmed by a child's hand holding the tablet while trying to stay hidden. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m., 3 weeks ago. It showed our small apartment's kitchen table covered in papers, bills spread out like a map of our struggles. And there I was, still in my waitress uniform from the diner, the coffee stains visible on my apron. "This is my mommy," Piper narrated live while the video played. "Every night after her first job, she comes home, helps Colton study, then goes to her second job cleaning offices. She sleeps 4 hours a night." In the video, I was on the phone, my voice tired but firm. "Yes, I understand the electricity will be shut off if I don't pay by tomorrow. I get paid Friday. Can you please just give me 2 more days?" The video showed me hanging up, putting my head in my hands for exactly 3 seconds, then standing up and grabbing my cleaning supplies for my night shift. The video changed. New timestamp. 2 months ago, 3 p.m., the public library. It showed Colton sitting with a group of small children, all gathered around him in the reading corner. "This is my brother," Piper continued. "He volunteers teaching little kids to read because he remembers how hard it was for him. He goes every Tuesday and Thursday. He doesn't get paid. He does it because he says nobody should feel stupid for learning differently." The video showed a little boy, maybe 6 years old, sounding out words slowly while Colton encouraged him. "That's perfect, Marcus. See? You're not dumb. Your brain just needs a different path to get there, like taking a different road to the same place." Another video. The timestamp made my stomach drop. Last month, 2:15 a.m. It was filmed from the back seat of our car. I was in the driver's seat and I was crying. I remembered that night. Garrett had missed another child support payment, and I'd just found out the rent was going up. This is my mommy crying because she had to choose between paying rent or buying Colton's graduation cap and gown. Piper's voice stayed steady, but I could hear tears threatening. She chose the cap and gown. We ate ramen for 2 weeks. She told us it was because she loved ramen. She doesn't love ramen. The auditorium was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming. Someone's mother was openly crying. I saw her husband put his arm around her. "Mr. Wendell," Piper turned to the principal, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "You said statistics don't lie. Here are my statistics." A PowerPoint slide appeared. The title, written in purple crayon font, said "The Real Statistics of the Mitchell Family" by Piper Mitchell, age 8. "Mommy works 74 hours a week," she read from her slide. "She's missed 0 parent-teacher conferences. She's read us 2,847 bedtime stories. I counted. She's made 5,475 peanut butter sandwiches. That's just for school lunches, not counting weekend sandwiches." She clicked to the next slide. It showed a calendar every single day marked with little notes in her childish handwriting. "She's given 14,600 hugs when we cried. She stayed up 247 nights when we were sick. She's walked 1,836 miles to work when the car was broken because she gave her last money to pay for Colton's school fees. Daddy has shown up to 12 events in 3 years." She clicked again. A photo appeared of Colton's acceptance letter to State University, with his scholarship letter beside it. "My brother got into college with a 3.2 GPA while battling dyslexia, working part-time at the grocery store and helping raise me. He wrote his essay about overcoming challenges. The scholarship committee said it was the best essay they'd read in 10 years. That's not barely passing, Mr. Wendell. That's extraordinary." The crowd started murmuring, then someone began clapping. It started in the back, 1 person, then 2, then spreading like wildfire, until the entire auditorium erupted in applause. People were standing up, whistling, cheering. I saw Mrs. Chen, whose son had graduated last year, wiping tears from her face. Mr. Barnes, the tech teacher, was filming everything on his phone, nodding with approval. "One more thing," Piper said, and everyone quieted immediately. She looked directly at Garrett, who had shrunk into his seat, Nadine trying to hide behind her program. "Daddy, you said we're disappointments, but you're the one who left. You're the one who chose money over memories. You're the one who forgot that love isn't about what you can buy. It's about who shows up." Her voice cracked for the first time. "We're not broken. You broke yourself when you walked away from us." She turned back to the audience. "My mommy says family isn't about being perfect. It's about being there, and she's always there. Even when she's tired, even when she's scared, even when she only has $4 in her bank account, she's there." The entire auditorium was on its feet now, 500 people applauding an 8-year-old girl who had just demolished every stereotype about broken homes with a tablet and the truth. Colton scooped Piper up in a hug right there on stage, both of them crying. I ran up to join them, not caring about the tears streaming down my face or the hundreds of eyes watching us. My mother was right behind me, moving faster than she had in years, her bad hip forgotten in the moment. We collided into a group hug that nearly knocked us all over. Piper squished in the middle, her tablet still clutched in her small hands. "How did you do all that?" I whispered to Piper, holding her face in my hands. "Mrs. Rodriguez from next door helped me with the computer stuff," she admitted, her nose red from crying. but I've been collecting evidence for months. I knew somebody would say something mean about us eventually. I wanted to be ready. Mrs. Rodriguez said documentation beats conversation every time. Mr. Wendell stood awkwardly to the side, his face the color of a ripe tomato. The school board president, Mrs. Patterson, was already making her way to the stage, her expression thunderous. Garrett had left the auditorium, Nadine trailing behind him, her high heels clicking rapidly against the floor as they fled the scene of their humiliation. The ceremony continued, but something had shifted. The air felt different, charged with a new energy. Parents kept approaching us afterward, sharing their own stories of struggle and triumph. A woman named Jennifer pressed a business card into my hand. "I run a tutoring center," she said. "If you ever need help with Piper's education, call me. No charge. That little girl is going places." Single mothers hugged me like we were old friends. Fathers shook Colton's hand with genuine respect, telling him about their own learning struggles. One man, a lawyer in an expensive suit, admitted he had dyslexia too. "I record everything now," he told Colton. "Don't let anyone tell you it's a weakness. It just means your brain sees patterns others miss." A week later, Mr. Wendell resigned. The school board had received hundreds of complaints about his comments. The video, which Mr. Barnes had posted with our permission, went viral. 3 million views in 5 days. The comments section was filled with stories from other single parents, other struggling families, other kids who'd been told they were statistics. Garrett's child support was increased after the video made its way to family court. The judge, a woman who'd raised 3 kids alone after her husband died, was not amused by the Hawaii vacation or the boat. She specifically referenced Piper's PowerPoint presentation in her ruling. Garrett now pays on time, every time through automatic wage garnishment. He also had to pay back support, which covered Colton's first semester of books and supplies. But the real change was in us. Colton walked taller after that day. He started tutoring other kids with learning disabilities, charging enough to help with his college expenses, but keeping it affordable for families like ours. He's in his sophomore year now, Dean's List both semesters, majoring in special education. He wants to be the teacher he needed when he was struggling. Piper joined the debate team, the youngest member in the school's history. Her teacher says she has a gift for argumentation and evidence presentation. She's 11 now, and yes, she still collects receipts, but now she uses them to defend other kids who need a voice. Last month, she helped a classmate document bullying incidents so thoroughly that the school had to completely revise their anti-bullying policy. And me? I learned that sometimes the youngest voice in the room carries the most truth, that statistics can't measure love, determination, or the fierce loyalty of an 8-year-old girl who keeps receipts. I went back to school myself, inspired by my children's courage. I'm studying to become a paralegal, using the same determination that got us through those ramen weeks. Mrs. Rodriguez watches Piper when I'm in class, refusing any payment except my promise to help other single mothers when I graduate. Our home isn't broken. It's different. It's built on struggle and sacrifice, cemented with unconditional love, and apparently protected by a tiny warrior in light-up sneakers who understood something the adults had forgotten. Family isn't about who stays together. It's about who shows up, who fights for each other, and who refuses to let anyone dim their light. Every graduation season, when I see social media posts about broken homes, I remember that day, the day my 8-year-old daughter taught an entire auditorium that broken is just another word for rebuilt stronger. The day she showed everyone that disappointment is just someone else's opinion, and we don't have to carry it. The day Piper Mitchell became our family's historian, defender, and proof that the smallest person can cast the biggest shadow when they stand in their truth. Sometimes the greatest gifts come in the smallest packages, wearing pink tulle dresses and light-up sneakers, armed with nothing but a tablet and the unshakable belief that love is louder than shame. If this story touched your heart, if you've ever been called a statistic or made to feel less than because your family looks different, please hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that they're enough, that their love is enough, that their family is enough. Leave a comment below sharing your own story of triumph over other people's expectations. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more stories that remind us all that the human spirit is unbreakable when wrapped in love. Remember, you're not a statistic. You're a success story still being written.